Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Dear students, we'll restart after the break. We were talking previously about the forms of listening, and I was just explaining to you how important it is for the teacher of English language listening to be aware that listening is a very complex process involving 3 stages in the sequence, beginning with pre-listening, and then while listening, and then post-listening stage. So once you are aware of it, and once you have realized that it is very serious to have this procedure adopted as English language teacher, you move, or even English language learner, you move on towards the stages of teaching listening. I mean, as a teacher of listening class and a listening English class, you need to realize that there are stages that you need to follow. Now, what you are going to do in the first stage, in the second stage, or in the third stage is very important. And I would like you also to pay attention to the correction part of your listening process. I mean, every student cannot be corrected by the teacher. Every student cannot be corrected by a peer, by parents, by anybody. So self-correction is an ideal technique when it comes to listening. By yourself, you speak, you listen, you realize where is wrong and what is wrong. So the words that you will see now in these 4 stages of teaching listening comprehension, you'll find a very common word, which is recognition and identification. So the first challenge that a student of English language listening encounters is his problems with the sound system, or with the kind of familiarity with the words that he listened to. For example, if it is a native British English, he will have more serious problems. If he has got Pakistani English, he will have less problems. If he has a little more localized accent of his classmates, that's partly Sindhi come English or Urdu come English or English that is more familiar, he will have less problems in recognition. But if listening to international varieties of English, he'll definitely have these problems. So the teachers of listening English, you will have to realize that there are 4 stages, and you will need to understand how are you going to operate these 4 stages of teaching listening. So we'll talk about one by one in this very short video today. So the first stage is, now it's Wiga Rivers who had a very dominating role in the teaching of listening English. So her 4 stages that she gave in 1968 still dominate the English language teaching world. So most of the people follow them. So what are you going to do in the first stage as a teacher of English? As a teacher of English and as a student of English, we are required to focus on the identification and the recognition of words. At this stage, the students need practice in discriminating the sounds and in the elements of meaning conveyed by stress, pitch, and intonation. An exercise consisting of dialogues is appropriate. Now, you'll see that it's very important at this stage for students to identify and discriminate between sounds, that he fully understands the sounds, that he fully able to realize and recognize different phrases and structures that he has listened from the passage. While he's listening, he's recognizing, he's making difference. Because the native English or the standard English that we call RP, the received pronunciation, has its own intonation system. So at times words fall apart. Words unfold in a very unpredictable manner. I mean, because we are non-natives of English, we Asians have always problems in recognizing the native sounds. So when it comes to an academic environment, the students who are never exposed to native situation encounter challenges and problems with the intonation, with the stress, with the pitch, and with the brevity of the sound that it flows from native speakers. So at this stage, the first thing is for the learners to just to recognize and discriminate between sounds and words, and then try to make meaning out of it. The second stage, at the second stage, uh, the teacher and the student are involved in identification and selection without retention process. Now, identification and selection without retention. Now, this is a very important word, that you not only identify words, phrases, clauses, sentences, or the chunks of language, but you will have to some point later retain them. But at this point, you are not required to retain them, I mean, remember them. You need only to identify them. So what you are going to do at this stage is that the students listens, the student listen dramatic readings by several participants of stories with a considerable amount of conversation. At a more advanced stage, the students may listen to a group conversations where 2 or 3 native speakers with easily identifiable difference of voice discuss a subject of interest to the students. So you will see that at this stage, the student is, exposed to more varieties, uh, is exposed to more sort of amount of conversation. And then, of course, he again tries to identify, because identification is very critical in this phase, but no retention at this time, only identification. Then the third stage is identification and guided selection with short-term retention. I mean, you need to remember things for a very short while. Not only identify, but you select and then you remember it. So material at this stage is somewhat similar to stage 2, which may be used with clearly distinctive voices and lively themes in the class. At this stage, the student is given some questions beforehand, not a great number, and he listens for the answers, which he marks on a question sheet as he hears them. Or at a more advanced stage, after he has listened to the whole passage, the passage should be repeated so that the student may have further practice in listening and selecting, and may have an opportunity to verify his answers. So at this stage, you are listening to the passage, listening to the CD, and you are having a sheet in front of you and making some notes out of it. So there is some kind of written work also going on while you are listening. So you'll be listening it and then doing something at the same time. And then you will be given some time to write the information, the content part that you have listened, and then do some work in the sheets. So you'll be putting or providing some kind of information out of the text that you have listened. So this is the third stage. You will listen and you will remember something, and then you answer some questions given in the sheet. So a teacher will operate in such a way in the class that he will be displaying some kind of material, maybe a CD or maybe a video or something for about 5-10 minutes. At the same time, he'll be giving you a kind of a sheet, handout, kind of a practice drill exercise, which should be done at the same time while you are listening to it. Then the third stage, fourth stage, sorry, is identification, selection, and long-term retention. We've got short-term retention and we've got long-term retention. We've got short-term memory like we've got long-term memory. So this is you listen to the text, you listen to the tape, you remember it, and you specify it, and then you answer or respond to your teacher. So what happens at this stage, this is the final stage in this very complex procedure of listening, which is very active skill. What happens here, that in this final stage, the student is encouraged to listen freely to all kinds of material. He may listen to literary extracts, poems, and lectures on literary or cultural or linguistic or any other topic for that matter connected with your subject, or he may listen to all kinds of oral material like news bulletins, discussions on typical interests, songs, films, or anything that suits to your interests or for your own pleasure. So, I mean, this longer versions of language are exposed. At this stage, he should be given practice in listening to regional accents and to all types of voices. I mean, we got a lot of accents nowadays, not only the accents, but the voices also. So, I mean, there could be a voice of a child. There could be a voice of a man. There could be a voice of a woman. There could be a voice of a traffic sergeant, the voice of a doctor dealing with patients. So, I mean, not only the accents, but the range of uh, types of voices need to be exposed at this stage, which is a very advanced stage. After a period of listening to all these uh, exercises or the texts or the passages in the class, the student is expected to be able to talk or write about what he has heard. So what you are going to do, you have listened all of that, a range of speakers, you have listened to a range of text, uh, beginning from academic, literary, cultural to entertaining and movies or any other thing that you listen to. Then you come to a point where uh, you are required to tell it to the class and the student about it. So you not only will be asked to write what you heard, but you will be also required to talk about it. So that's the more advanced stage. Now this will give you the confidence that from beginning stage was recognizing the sounds, making discrimination, and then there was second stage was that you are making you're retaining the text that you would listen, and then the third stage was identifying and short-term retention, short-term remembering it for a very short time, and then the fourth stage is long-term retention. Now the point is, it is not possible, considering the complex nature of listening, that you'll retain and remember everything you listen to. But the point is whether you can make the gist of it or not, whether you can answer the questions about the text that you listen to or not, and whether you can talk about something, you can talk about what you have listened to. Just go and do this exercise at home from today. I mean, listen to some text for 5 minutes, for 10 minutes, then yourself ask questions what you have listened to. I mean, how good you are at answering those questions. What you have heard, whom you have heard, what was the talk about, what were the issues, what were the problems, what was something very good in this talk, what is something very bad about in this talk. So you will have a list of questions yourselves, uh, asking from yourselves once you are listening any talk on television or on the YouTube or whatever it is. But you be a student, you be a teacher, you be a participant, you be a main source of your own development. So these are the four stages that literature on the linguistic part of the literature tells us about the teaching of listening, that a good teacher of listening need to practice all these four stages. And a student also need to learn in these four stages. I mean, you do not need to jump up to fourth stage and listen a movie, sometimes students ask question. Sir, I cannot understand English movie. The point is, how did you move to that point? How much energy did you put in listening to smaller chunks of language and phrases of language? How good you are at just recognizing and identifying the sounds at the initial level, at the intermediary level, and then at the advanced level. So, language learning is a process, as I said always. You need to be, you are a beginner, you are at the middle level, then you are at the advanced level. So what our students actually do, they immediately jump into the advanced level, and then they say, sir, we're not able to understand, we are not able to recognize, we are not able to remember what is being said. It's very difficult. It is something ungrammatical. It is so and so. So we have got a lot of theories then coming up into the classrooms every time and again as we listen, that the students think, well, that's something out of the box to understand English movies. It's not the case. The problem is you take listening not in the way as is required, as is the desired model of listening. So you divide your listening first into three forms, then into three or four stages. Begin from the first stage. Are you just able to recognize the words and their pronunciation and their sounds and their meaning? Are you able to make something out of it? So begin with smaller pieces of language to the larger pieces of discourse. Then it will be, I hope, very easy for you to understand. But top of all is that you need to have a stronger level of motivation and commitment, that listening is your main source. Listening is going to define and decide your future. Your good listening skills are going to decide about your success in the interviews. Your good listening skills are going to decide how good and efficiently you can use the lecture talks that you listen to everywhere, and how good you can be in your practical life, in your professional life. So this is all about the theoretical part of listening that we have discussed so far. This is what the theory is. We'll have more practical discussions in the coming days, and I will recently, I'll be shortly sharing with you the schedule about our practical discussions, as I can see if I can manage through it. Otherwise, I'll be sharing with you on the LMS, Learning Management System, some recorded material and some resources that could help you in developing your speaking, listening skills. I tell you, it's very integrated. Listening and speaking are very integrated. Listening is a kind of input, and speaking is an output. One is receptive, other is a productive skill. So the point is, are you putting something in, some wheat in the mill to grind? If you're not putting anything, if you are not putting anything in your brain, nothing is going to come out. The more you expose to your listening range of accents and voices and speakers, the more time you spend in listening, the better the efficient response would you see is coming up in the form of your good speaking skills. So when you are developing your listening, you are indirectly developing your speaking skills. This is what you need to understand. This is what you need to realize, that this is very, very important. Yes, we have a student who has raised his hand. What do you want to say? We have Sabagul trying to say something. I am just going to share with you another important book that I'll be talking to you about in the coming days. Now, this is the book. You can see Study Listening by Tony Lynch. This is a lovely course book for the international students. This book is available in a library, but you will definitely cannot access it. So I'll be trying to upload some of the units from this book, and you can just find them available on the LMS or through your own IDs. You can access it and you'll find it there. But if you're not able to find them, I'll be trying to break them apart into some smaller segments of listening, and they'll be sharing with you once I come back again on practical listening. All right? Is there any question before I close it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, please make it.
Sir, actually, sir, my question is that, sir, if a teacher is, going to neglect one stage, okay, and on the other hand, if he or she is going to start from the second stage, so, sir, what do you think? Would it affect on the learners or not? So, take the example of forms as well, sir. As we have the number one form is a pre-listening, sir. So, when the teacher is going to neglect this pre-listening form and going to start the listening, so, sir, would it be effect on the listener? That's
Of
my
course,
question, sir.
of course. I tell you, it's very critical. We all need to understand that learning anything becomes only interesting, only unforgettable if it is made interesting, if it is made, something uh, full of motivation. Once you do kind of a pre-listening exercise or pre-listening discussion with your students, they will be with motivated, they will be charged, they will be energized, they will be involved, they will be warmed up, they will welcome what you present at the next stage. Otherwise, if you do not tell them about the importance of listening, if you will not tell them about the beauty of good listener, the benefits and the fruits that good listening brings, if you will not uh, let them participate in the process of listening or discussion, and you will directly put into the listening of the text, then I'm sure you are not going to get those desired results. So as a learner, as a teacher, you need to realize that with greater motivation, with greater willingness, with greater commitment, only you can make learning interesting and enjoyable experience. Once it becomes interesting and enjoyable, it's going to be learning, it's going to be changing you forever. So you can be a very good listener.
Ji, sir.
Yes, please. Any more questions before I close?
Sir,
Yes, please.
so there is also some kind of a problem related with, sir, as intonation. So when we talk about the listener, if the person is listening the same sentence with a different, context, as we have a different context, but we are listening the same sentence in a different context. So, sir, what do you think? The listener would comprehend the same meaning, or would it be a different? So, take the example of the if a baby is doing something wrong, and the mother is saying that, "What have you done this?" Like in a simple way, soft way. So, sir, if on the other situation, if the student is doing something wrong, and this teacher said that, "What have you done this?" So, sir, the difference is only the intonation, like in a high pitch, or we can say a low. So, sir, what do you think? If there is the differences in the intonation, how the listener would tackle out the meaning? Whether the listener would understand the meaning different, or would it be remain the same?
You see, the intonation system in any language defines the meaning and the level of stress. So if a learner is exposed to it, if he is familiar with it, now if you ask somebody, what are you doing? He will answer that I am taking a class. But if you ask somebody, come on, what are you doing? This question has something absolutely different implication. That
Yes,
something
sir.
stunning and something staggering has come up, and the teacher is asking this question, what are you doing? That he's trying to stop the person to stop doing it. So, I mean, intonation is very critical. Intonation is very decisive. But the problem is that when our students are stuck up with the problems of fluency in listening, problems of fluency in speaking, they really do not enjoy the fruits of intonation. Now, intonation is the beauty of language that makes language very dynamic,
Yes.
very natural, and very I should say, effective and very original, very contextual. So if you understand the intonation system, it's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate, I must say, that
Exactly.
our teachers and students, a big majority, do not pay attention to this. And we speak English in a way like we're speaking Sindhi or Urdu. So, I mean, you cannot take care of intonation then. If you are speaking English in Sindhi or speaking English in Urdu, or if you have no orientation of English being an international language with its own intonation system, where it has got its pitch of the sound and rise and fall and everything coming in and going, the words coming out, the air coming out, and the vocal cords are functioning. So everything is so complex and so beautiful, I should say. So it
Ji,
depends
sir.
on all that depends on the learner and the teacher, how keenly you are interested and you're motivated to become efficient international user of English. It is very important.
Ji, sir.
Any more questions? Well, I hope that when we are meeting next time, everybody has listened something for about 30 minutes. Listen to something, then apply that, how you as teachers of English listening can exploit listening in your own classrooms. So I would like you to go to listen BBC, listen to CNN, listen to Russian television, RT, very famous television, and then listen to French 24, listen to Pakistani English, listen to uh, any other English, Australian English, New Zealand English, but you see how words are picked up there. So once you come out of it, then you would definitely be able to produce your own better accent. Once you listen that, what are the real requirements of RP or the standard English, all right? So with this said, I close my today's talk, and that we have now completed the theoretical part of teaching listening. Now we'll be doing some practical work. But for that to benefit you all, I would advise you to have yourself enough practical listening, uh, do some kind of listening at home, and then ask yourselves the questions. Check yourself. Be your teacher yourself. All right, and then see how listening is going to contribute. I mean, this is absolutely unprecedented in your life. New, first time that you can learn English by listening, something that you might not have heard of. We all know that we can learn English by grammar, by reading, by writing, by good teacher. Let's have good teacher, we'll learn English. No, we are going to tell you that yes, English language is a communicative process. Our communication skills will come only if we have begun to be good listeners, and then speakers, then readers, then writers. Just imagine, you listen English in the first years of your life, maybe 1 year, or maybe 2 years. What do? You listen and speak. Then from the fourth and the fifth year of life, you begin to read and write. But the system of English language education in this country has made it quite reversal. First, you read English, you write English, then you listen and speak English. Look at the paradigm shifts. The pendulum is swinging back and forth, unfortunately, without any pedagogical thinking on the part of the policy making, on the part of the teachers. But I'm sure you being new researchers of English, teachers of English, students of English are going to lead this country and this part of the country